Welcome to Web Certain TV. I'm Gemma Houghton. Today I'm joined by Rohrs, who's the CMO of Yext, and we're going to talk about the power of location data. So hi Geoffrey.
Hello.
Thank you for being here.
Happy to be here.
Great. So firstly, just kind of set the scene a bit. What exactly is location data?
So location data is just everything about your business that could be relevant to a mobile consumer as they're searching for information on their phone. So at a baseline, it's a NAP, name, address, phone. But beyond that, it could be photos, it could be social handles for engagement, it could be management information, store hours, holiday hours, emergency hours, all of those types of things that are relevant, and it can also vary by industry as well.
Okay. And why is it so important now then for businesses to be aware of this information and pulling it in? So
we have an interesting perfect storm of circumstances finally coming together, and that is the smartphone. So you have a large percentage of the population worldwide who now have smartphones in their hands.
Yeah.
It also concerns the data plans that they have. So in just the last couple of years, the data plans have become more expansive. So people are willing to do more on their phones when they're out and about.
Yeah.
Third piece is the expansion of Wi-Fi in relevant areas, so that if the data plans aren't sufficient, people are getting online on a Wi-Fi network. And so they're using these devices as they were intended, and that is out and about. So a mobile device isn't just mobile because the device can move, it's because there's a human being who is taking that device places. They're going places, right? And they want to find out information in that very moment that matters to them. And so it is very tangential, right? If you think about your day, there's certain things you plan out, but there are certain, I want to go shopping, I want to find out, where is there an Indian restaurant near here, what's the best rated restaurant? These types of things that come up just as top of mind. And really that convergence of those things and that empowered consumer has made it such that location data is more critical than ever to be accurate in the moment that matters.
And what are kind of the consequences then for businesses that kind of ignore that?
Sure. So it's interesting. Most businesses, I think you would talk to, they just assume that the location data is done by Google or it's done by Apple. It's done by these different companies that are mapping the world. I mean, Google's driving their cars and mapping the world. Yeah. Apple's mapping the world. Uber bought all of Bing's assets for mapping and is mapping the world. Tesla is mapping the world. Yeah. But there's a big difference between mapping streets and mapping locations. And so the location data up until now had really been the result of third-party aggregated data. And so algorithmically, Google and others would kind of put together what they thought was the best information about this particular store or restaurant or professional. But the truth is, third-party data is never going to be the best source. It's first-party data. Yeah. And so there's this flip now where companies have to manage it accurately, because if they don't, they're leaving it up to chance.
Yeah, and then there's going to be wrong information out there, which could end up disappointing customers.
You got it. And the customer blames the brand, not necessarily the search engine or the app that they're using.
Yeah, it just leaves a bad kind of impression, which is obviously going to have potentially going to have a long-term impact.
Well, and in certain industries, such as healthcare, there really is almost a moral obligation. Yeah. I mean, we've heard a number of examples from different pharmacies where this issue hit their radar because of an angry customer complaint where they had an emergency situation, they got a prescription, they needed to fill it, they went online, whatever search engine or app they were using said the store was open, they got there, it was closed.
Yeah.
So those things are now pain points that get elevated through social media and customer service channels, and they're finally hitting the radar of companies to realize we have to manage location as an asset.
Yeah, and you can avoid all of that by just checking that information. So you've spoken about the 7 powers of location. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit what they are, or pick out the most important ones? And
so the first one is exploration. We just touched upon that. You've got consumers who are out in the world and they're looking for things. So the power there is to make sure that you're aligning your brand and walking in the shoes of the consumer. We hear a lot these days of marketing about the customer journey. That customer journey is with a smartphone in hand. How are you going to serve them? Really, in a closely related way, discovery is the second power. So then how are you going to help them discover what you have to offer? And again, don't make the assumption that third-party search engines or apps are taking care of that. You need to, again, walk in their shoes, do the types of searches, look in the type of mapping apps, and see how is your information being presented. And sometimes that will highlight, just the horrific state of it. Another one is connectivity. So, you're leading people to a place, right? Your store, your location. In that place, location is often kind of this interesting fourth dimension. So, we're recording this at the Andaz in London. That's a physical location. This is a hotel. So in that fourth dimension, there are probably Yelp reviews. There are TripAdvisor, Expedia reviews. Yeah. There are restaurants nearby that might have reviews. There's social media of people checking in on Facebook, maybe on Foursquare or Swarm. There are perhaps geofilters on Snapchat that people are applying because they're here, near the Spitalfields Market in this particular area of London. There are visual geofilters on Snapchat that people can be applying. So one of the powers is now to think of that connectivity and that virtual reality we're dealing with, and how do you engage the customer? How do you get them to engage with the brand, become a member of your audience? So subscribe, become a fan, a follower. I wrote a book called Audience, Marketing in the Age of Subscribers, Fans, and Followers, that's all about that. Location's a really great magnetic center for you to engage those folks, because there also is a power of intent. And that is to say, if I am there physically, I probably have some sort of affinity for the brand or potential loyalty later. So maybe I can leverage beacon technologies to engage and develop a mobile audience so that I can re-engage those folks when they leave through advertising. So all of these powers that I kind of enumerate are meant to get gears turning in marketers and brands to understand that location at a fundamental level is getting your location data right, because there's a lot of power in that. You can then leverage that to target your advertising better, et cetera. But it's also about engaging people in that moment in the physical space, because that's almost a springboard to a longer term relationship. Yeah,
and I think it's quite interesting actually, because in the kind of digital world, it's almost sometimes like location is seen as less important because everybody is online. It doesn't matter where you are, you can access the same things. But in fact, it's kind of more important because the two are coming together more.
Well, we've had enough experience now with e-commerce to understand that e-commerce is not eradicating face-to-face commerce.
Yeah.
Here in the UK, 85% of commerce is still taking place face-to-face. In the US, it's like 93%. So the erosion has happened to a degree, but at the end of the day,
it's not going to wipe it out.
It's not going to wipe it out, because there's still convenience. You see a lot of these order online, pick up in store type of situations, and there it becomes about the upsell. So really, it's about how do we have this hand in glove between the digital presence and the physical brick and mortar presence to maximize value. And that's really kind of the O to O, the online to offline holy grail, that we can begin to measure the individual coming from the digital advertising channel or website on through to store purchase and then back again, so that we understand how do we drive greater share of wallet and also greater customer satisfaction.
And then what would be your kind of top couple of tips that you would say to any business that, has location, has stores, has a physical location that needs to make more of it? What are the top things they should be doing to really kind of get ahead, stand out?
Sure. So the first thing is you have to have a source of truth for your location data. Most companies have a source of truth for their customer data. That's their CRM system, like Salesforce or Oracle. Most companies have a source of truth for their employee data because they need to pay those employees. And that might be ADP or some other system. With location data, it has been this thing, especially in large organizations, where you can have multiple spreadsheets, databases that have the information. Operations and facilities can have it. Yeah. Marketing has needed it because they need to understand for the website the information. But it's never been in a source where you update it once and you publish it everywhere. And that's really our vision at Yext, to provide that platform. But that, I think, is a key piece of the puzzle. If you don't have a source of truth, then you have inefficiencies because you have multiple, entry of data. It doesn't communicate with each other, so you're going to have things that are wrong.
You're bound to miss things.
You're
if you do
going to frustrate consumers no matter what. And the third piece is there going to be extra costs in that for you. So we think now, because of the mobile device, location finally, and I think you said it very well, it's been kind of, people haven't thought about it, but now the mobile device and these factors that I've enumerated are bringing it to a head. And And we see it in funny ways. So we see it, for instance, one of our customers in the banking industry became a customer because the head of digital's wife came home one day having gotten bad directions to one of their branches and been left in a not so good part of town.
Oh.
From a branch that had closed, but it wasn't reflected online. And she came home and said, "Isn't this your job to get this right?" And so it's funny sometimes how it surfaces. But you want to, in this day and age, any points of friction or bad social media feedback that you can eliminate, you should. And so that's the number one tip. The second piece is to think of location as an asset and part of your marketing resources that should be actively managed. It's great. You've got the location, right? And maybe that location is going to be there for years and years. But the things that you can be managing on an ongoing basis, some of the publishers that we distribute location data to will allow promotional elements. So you can be rotating those out. Many of them allow you to manage your images, so you can have seasonal relevance. And the other piece is, and we see this right now in Alberta, Canada, with the Fort McMurray wildfires that are, they're just huge. They're like 4 times the size of New York. These wildfires, to put them in perspective, we have a number of clients who are able to say that these locations are closed due to the emergency and redirect customers to places that are open. So now you begin to think about all the things that can happen from weather, act of gods, illness, etc., so that you can inform your consumers in that moment that they're looking for you.
Without having to get your whole team involved and it be a really complex process.
Well, and then the third piece is what's happening in with Snapchat and social media, and that, again, this fourth dimension that I can have geo filters that are specific to right here. I can only use them if I'm here, is really intriguing because, again, in order to do that, you're going to have to know what your locations are so that you can geofence appropriately. And so, we're really thinking around those corners about where location becomes even more important from a social element.
So there's definitely a lot of potential to really
absolutely
make it exciting. Wow. Thank you very much for sharing that today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the time.